Hello and welcome. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell, and thank you so much for joining me. Today I'm going to talk about the Pisces new moon, which occurs on the 23rd of February at 3:31 p.m. Now, of course, you can see from the wheel on screen that we have the moon here and we have the sun, and you can see the midpoint that I'm using between the two here. That's exactly 4 degrees. So the exciting thing about Pisces energy is, of course, that it flows. It's mutable, so it's flexible. It's the element of water, so very intuitive, and it can help us all to reach inside of ourselves and be as in touch as we can be with the more sensitive part of our nature. But Pisces energy can also be quite ethereal. It's not necessarily a physical force. But what makes this particular new moon so absolutely fascinating is the role of Mars. Because if we see here Mars in the sign of Capricorn, which it moved into on the 18th of February for a 6-week stay, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and of course it's picking up with Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, and the South Node, which are already there. But Mars, being exalted, can really prosper in this part of our situation. So it's given us a greater determination around the material world, around practicalities, because of the earthiness of Capricorn. So this angle between the moon and the sun and Mars is absolutely perfect. So that's going to give us more fire. And of course, with Pisces being watery, this is a different kind of new moon for Pisces. But there's something else I want to tell you about that's crucially important. If we look at where the sun and the moon are, they're at 4 degrees in Pisces. Now, through the Indian duad or dward system, where we divide each of the 30 degrees of the zodiac sign by 12, the second 2.5 degrees is governed by Aries. And Aries, of course, rulership of Mars. So this is going to be a much fierier new moon in Pisces than would normally be the case, with the support of Mars and also the dward in the sign of Aries too. So that's going to give more passion, more drive, more determination. Now, Pisces energy can be very healing. And of course, one of the big things that the world as a whole is grappling with is this issue with coronavirus. And once the sun goes alongside Neptune, the co-ruler of Pisces here, from the 5th through to the 12th of March, I feel that that's going to be a key period for how this potential pandemic could play out. Because, of course, Neptune is very much about the misty side of Pisces. It's very healing potentially, very compassionate, but it can also be about mystery, it can be about distortion. And of course, if we think back to when the coronavirus first was recognized by the incredibly brave doctor in China, who was only 30, the authorities tried to close him down because, of course, China, although it's in their constitution that they can have free speech and it is a communist state, it's actually quite a totalitarian society with a lot of flexibility to be productive around manufacturing and making money. So it's being challenged, China as a state, I feel, by the conjunction between Saturn and Pluto, which is very much about power, centralized in the middle, more traditional power, very official, but restricting the freedom of speech. But I think we're going to find with this particular new moon and Mars reinforcing the energy of Capricorn that people will start to speak out even more. It's already happening. I think it's going to become more of a trend. But the interesting thing is, beyond the fact that we have that duad or dward at 4 degrees Pisces in Aries, we also have Mercury retrograde, which began on the 17th of February and will last in retrograde through to the 3rd of March in the sign of Pisces, before returning to the sign of Aquarius on the 4th, emerging from the retrograde on the 9th, and then, of course, returning to Pisces on the 16th before coming out of shadow on the 29th of March. So we've got quite a long way to go in terms of the retrograde itself and the reversal into Aquarius and the shadow periods that Mercury's going through. But Mercury actually does, despite its retrograde in the sign of Pisces, where of course it's in detriment, it does forge a beautiful angle with the North Node. And this chart is based on GMT, based in Greenwich. Now, of course, other people could erect a chart based on where they're located or where their practice is, but I've gone for Greenwich Mean Time because that's something, it's universal time that we can all relate to. So this angle between Mercury and the North Node, and also the Sun by only 2 degrees, so a lovely trine, I think that does point towards the potential for a reaching out, an understanding of the need to connect and be together in how we deal with this and other issues, but particularly linked anything to do with water, global environment, but water is particularly coming more and more into focus, as I have been saying for some while. But if we look beyond this, there are other influences going on as well, not least that we have Venus squaring up with Jupiter. Exactly. Now, this could be said to be one of the most benign of all squares, but actually I think it does have some challenges, this one, because if we look at the role of Juno, Juno has started to go backwards. Juno is very much about how we relate, our mode of operandi when we come to interactions with others, and that's being pinned on a T-square by both Jupiter, but also pretty well by Pluto as well. So Pluto on a T-square with Venus and also Juno. So when it comes to relationships, and this chart has Venus in the 9th house in Aries, which of course is much more combustible because it is also in detriment, and Juno is going backwards in the sign of Libra. So that's very much, that opposition is very much to do with relating. So a relationship could disappoint us at this time, and we could find out there's much more of a power dynamic to it than we'd realised. So if someone's trying to leverage their way into your affections and seeming to be fantastically charming on the back of Venus's square with Jupiter and also Venus's opposition with Juno, I wouldn't be too swept away at this stage. We can also see that we've got Black Moon Lilith and also Chiron very, very close together in Aries. Fascinating stuff. Chiron in Aries, very much to do with our identity. And I think Black Moon Lilith here can point towards unbridled passions, but also the untapped side of our passionate nature. It's a kind of bit of a mixture between Venus and Uranus. Can be a bit wild, and particularly perhaps in Aries. So if there is something that we need to heal around a relationship, Black Moon Lilith could see us wanting to expose ourselves a little bit more around intimacy. But I would proceed with caution if there is somebody that you really are drawn towards, someone you find very magnetic, someone who's offering in a business situation unlimited benefits of a situation, the classic get-rich-quick scenario because of the power of Pluto. Remember, Pluto is about the underworld, it's about the dark side, so it's about the side that people don't often like to reveal about themselves, and it is squaring up with Venus and Juno. So I think the politics of a relationship, whether it's a potential relationship, a potential business deal, particularly with Mercury retrograde, or an ongoing relationship, understanding the boundaries, the balance of power is all going to be something critical to gain from this particular new moon. Now, a new moon obviously provides a joyous potential backdrop for the following month to rejuvenate the area that's being activated. And Pisces is asking us really to be in touch with the more shadow side of our nature, the more hidden side, the side that perhaps we're not always so comfortable in the Western world anyway, pardon me, in terms of our psychology. We like to see our bodies generally as there to serve us, but our psyche is very important. So I think even if we do consult someone who's authoritative, Mars, in the sign of Capricorn, about an issue that's tender and sensitive, that can actually be a very positive thing. They can bring fire into our situations if we have been finding it a little bit hard to comprehend something. And also, of course, Mercury retrograde points towards the potential for distorted communications, particularly in Mercury. But I like to think as communication is not necessarily the key word. It is about comprehension. I can express myself to one person and they just may not understand where I'm coming from. Then again, someone can express themselves to me and I might not get onto it because their mode of communication may be very different to mine. And we can kind of get bits of it, and that's where there is the potential for the miscommunication to come from that miscomprehension in the first place. So we all have to work pretty hard at that. Now, there are some other incredible aspects driving this particular new moon. And Uranus, which is going to be tremendously important all through this year because it is going to be connecting with a series of very critical moon phases. Well, Uranus is forging a beautiful trine with Mars. Now, Mars in Capricorn can be a little more traditional because Capricorn is the sign of traditionality, but this particular angle suggests that we can be more innovative and yet use the foundations that we've learned over a period of time that work for us. So it could be a modification on an existing plan. It could be trying something different in a different way, so adapting something that's already ongoing. It could be with Uranus in that angle to Mars, if you're fortunate enough and you are single, because Uranus also forges a brilliant angle to the new moon as well, that someone quite dramatic, and on this chart it could become someone quite experienced and perhaps in a position of influence, could come into your or my life in a very powerful way. So we've got that lovely angle between Uranus, Mars and the new moon. So that's why I feel that this new moon is going to be more radical, much less watery, wet, bogged down, even though we have got Mercury and Neptune in the sign of Pisces too. We've got all this Aries energy in Black Moon, Lilith, Chiron and Venus. We have got the opposition between Venus and Juno, squaring up with Jupiter and also with Pluto. But I think the fact that the Dward for this is Aries and that Mars energy coming from Capricorn where it's blessed, and the energy of Uranus really points to us being much more experimental, to take our instincts which come through the sign of Pisces, listening to our hunches, going with things, not necessarily calibrating them in a more mental airy way, which comes through the prism of, say, the preceding sign of Aquarius. But I do feel that when it comes to relationships, there is the potential for something dramatic and wonderful to happen and very quick moving through this Uranus influence on the moon and Mars. But also with Juno there, opposite Venus, screwing up Jupiter and Pluto, just watch out for the politics. So I would say it's live in the moment, listen to our hunches, but don't forget the lessons and experiences we've had in the past. Remember, Pisces is the accumulative energy of all the other 11 zodiac signs. So it's a very complex, sophisticated sign in some ways. Yes, it can be very gentle, very soothing, very calm, very compassionate, very sacrificing, but also very cool and detached. But I don't think this is going to be a cool and detached new moon at all. This is absolutely going to rock. And if you'd like to find out how this will affect your individual zodiac sign, please see the link beneath this video, and you can go to my astrology blog and get your specific zodiac sign forecast for the new moon for the next month. But I'd like to thank you so much for joining me. I'd be very grateful if you subscribed, shared or liked. But for now, good luck and goodbye. If you would like to ascend above your zodiac sign and embrace real astrology based on your time, date and place of birth, please see the link beneath this video where you can click to have a one-to-one consultation with myself, or you could choose to have your character analysis and 12-month forecast produced by me. And I'm giving a 30% discount for this at this time, but this will give you so much crucial information to guide your moves and help you to maximize your opportunities. But for now, it's been a real honor being with you. I'd be so grateful if you subscribed, if you've yet to do so, and good luck and goodbye.